All right, welcome back to Just Some BS podcast. We have Liz Weber on today. Liz, thank you for coming.
I am very happy to join you, Brandon. Thank you.
I'm excited to get into everything you have to offer because I got to see one of your presentations at the Lancaster SHRM, SHRM. I think I said that right. And it was enlightening. And actually, that talk that you gave pushed me into the behavior conversation at SWF. So we made 30 behavior videos last year and rolled them out each week. And we made them very interactive. Like we made up the things that we wanted to talk about and we made like little skits with the employees and then we put those out. But like I was like hankering on that for about 2 years until you were like, this is why it's important. I'm like, oh, eureka. So thank you.
You're welcome. I just hope I don't sound like that when I'm speaking. This is how you do it.
Well, sometimes I need a little bit of that like punch in the face when you're like, because there's so much noise.
Yeah.
And sifting through some of that, and then you give very specific examples, and they were very easy for me to comprehend and like to put into action. It wasn't so scary. So thank you.
Good. You're welcome. I'm glad it worked.
Yeah. So executive and board advisor, leadership, strategic and succession planning consultant, and keynote speaker. Out of all that, what's your favorite?
The business advisory and coaching. Because you just, it's more personal, but you don't know what the issue is going to be. I don't have a single coaching client. Well, number one, I don't take coaching clients that have to get coaching. I only work with executives or business owners, whatever, that want someone from the outside to bounce ideas around with. And so I never know what the conversation is going to be about, because it may be a situation where it's like, hey, Liz, I just got to run something by you. This just happened today. Or it may be a follow-on from what we talked about last month. Or it could go off and take a left-hand turn if we start talking about, let's say, videos that you're running inside the company, and you just happen to mention that one of your welders, Kyle, just hasn't been acting like himself lately, and you share a couple things and we take a left turn because of that, because Kyle is one of your team leads. He's essential. He's got 3 people on your team that are crucial for a big project that's coming in, and we hone in on talking about Kyle. So it's I don't know what we're going to talk about. It's always something new, and it keeps me on my toes.
Yeah, the conversations must be really free.
They are. They're free flowing. And I'll be honest with you also, majority of my conversations are no more than 30 minutes, because my clients, like you, business owners, execs, CEOs, they don't have a lot of time, and they will tap the brakes for 30 minutes, maybe an hour, but typically 30 minutes a month to run stuff by me, or to catch up, or to go, here's what I'm thinking, what do you think? And every now and then I'll get the random text or phone call saying, hey, can we just chat for a couple minutes? I want to run something by you. And again, that's what I really like, is just those kind of needed impromptu hits of information.
Have you always been a person who's leaned into that kind of support? Like, have you always loved that consulting, that advisory, that using your knowledge to help people's potential or problems has always been really true to you?
I didn't even know there was such a thing as consulting until I was in my capstone course as an undergrad. And that's when my capstone course was taught by this guy who was this thing called a consultant. And he was the only professor I had in my undergrad who wasn't a PhD. And he would come into the class, and he would have had us read 3 chapters for that week, and he goes, okay, here's what the chapters say, but here's what happens in real life, and here's what I did with my client that ties into that. And I was like, whoa, that's what I want to do. That makes so much sense. And Brandon, it wasn't until years later that, to your question, that was obviously a pivotal point, but it started also to tie a bunch of threads together for me, because as a freshman in college, I was putting on the freshman 15 because I was partying and loving life a little bit too much, and I needed to take off some weight. So I signed up for aerobics classes, and after one semester of aerobics classes, I realized that if I could become an instructor, I could get paid to exercise. And then I realized I liked being in front of the group more than I liked being in the back of the room. And so that was another kind of a little light bulb that went off years later, that that was when I really started realizing I'm happier being in front and being the lead. I don't need this. I don't need this ceremony. I don't need the acknowledgement. I need to control the room. I have this control thing and taking charge thing. So between that and the consulting epiphany of there was such a thing were really kind of turning points for me.
Well, I'm sure as well as there's a piece of efficiency in that of if I'm going to work out, I might as well get paid for it.
Exactly. I mean, I thought it was a brilliant move, and then, when I'm exercising, getting paid for 6 hours of basically dancing and exercising a week. Yeah, it was pretty cool. It was fun. I had my leg warmers. I had my headband. I had everything, Brandon.
Crushing it.
I was crushing it. I think I might even had a perm at the time. I mean, we're talking the 80s, and it was the best decade ever. I'm just telling you.
That's what everybody tells me.
Yeah, I know. You were just a babe, but I have to tell you, it was the best decade ever.
Oh, man. So you've supervised business activities in 129 countries and consulted in over 20. How have these international experiences influenced your approach to leadership development with local organizations?
No one's ever asked me that question before. That's a good question. I
love that.
Kudos to you. It's a combination of that was when I was working with the State Department and had the opportunity to do all that oversight work and travel a lot. But it was also a situation where through those travels, and when you are traveling internationally, I'm a news hound. I love watching the news anyway. But when you watch the news from different parts of the world, it really changes your perspective on how important your world is versus how important the world is. And what really resonated with me through all of those different experiences, and then looking at leaders, is good leaders are not cultural specific. There are common themes that run through good leaders, regardless of culture, regardless of industry. And, there are just some of the fundamentals and some of the skills that carry through. Clear vision, ability to clearly articulate expectations, clearly to be able to read your team and what do they need of you next to help them move forward, your ability to understand strategy, your ability to read the competition. There's just so many things that, again, are not culturally specific, but are incredibly important to be a good leader of an organization or a company that will thrive because of the culture you create within the organization.
Dang. Immediately my mind went to project management, because I think project management at its core is a universal language. I think if you have the skills to run a good project correctly, you could literally do that anywhere in the world. Even with a language barrier, because of data, you could probably get by figuring it out. Well, Google Translate now, you could definitely figure it out. But so what you're saying is leadership is similar to that. Well, because it's people focused. So like at the end of the day, we're all way more similar than we want to agree to. But.
Absolutely.
Dang. Did traveling all that also make you a bit more empathetic in the sense of like, I feel it's like one of those when in doubt, zoom out situations where like when you're, like you said, even just the news and being empathetic to people's situations and our world versus, US versus wherever you're going, the cultural changes had to open up your mind to be like, okay, like everybody relax. It's not as bad as we're seeing on our side of the fence.
It's very different. And I, naively, even though I had traveled before I was in my first career position, you don't appreciate how myopic the news is until you get out and you are immersed in another country's news. And I say another country's news specifically because, like particularly when you're traveling, at least for me, when you're traveling around Europe or if you're in the Middle East, the news is regional. It's not one country specific. So if you're traveling, let's say you're in Paris, you're hearing news from Germany, from the UK, from France, but also from Belgium, also from Italy, also from Spain, because you're part of the EU. And so just by default, you're getting a much more cosmopolitan and much more varied perspective of what's happening in the world. It's not just myopic into what's happening with your country. That doesn't happen here in the U.S. Our news is dominated by what's happening with us. And then, oh, by the way, there was a major typhoon in the Philippines and 3,000 people were killed. 30-second, well, maybe 10-second soundbite gone.
Yeah.
And that's as much international news as we get quite often. So, that in and of itself just really shapes how I look at the work that I do and, kind of where I get my insights from.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, man, that must have given you, because I know just traveling the country during the time I traveled a lot, it gave me such a perspective, even just town to town, state to state. I couldn't imagine country to country. It just expands that. Wow.
Well, but Brandon, to your point though, even that, when you travel from the East Coast to the Midwest to the West Coast, and then go up to Seattle, and then go down to like Miami, and then go up to Boston, and then go down to Dallas. The cultural differences there are, it's astounding. It's just, I just say all that because, again, I just want to loop back to something we were talking about earlier. I think, if you really want to be an effective leader, you got to pay attention to what's driving some of the mindsets of the people that you employ. Where do they come from? What do they believe in? What have they been exposed to? What have their family values been? Because they're going to bring all of that to work. And either it's going to mesh or it's not. You try to create a culture that's going to allow you to create the products or services that you are there to do. But how do you create that environment for a team who needs to work together? And the goal, and I know you focus a lot of time and attention on this, is you want them to have fun working together. Because they're going to be able to do better work. They're going to be happier. They're going to be healthier, which from a business perspective saves you money in the bottom line because you've got employees showing up and they're not injured and they're not sick. There are fewer mistakes. It's just a win-win-win across the board.
Yeah, I always reference that as everybody comes in with baggage, and there's only very special people I feel that can turn off life's baggage when they walk through the door. I am not one of them. If I'm having a crappy day at home, everyone knows it. At work, I can't. I am so less efficient, and so we've really been taking a hyper focus on trying to solve that at home baggage as well, because you could be the best employee ever, but if you still have that stuff at home, it's stuff you're still bringing in.
Yeah. And everybody has it. Everybody has it, and I think it's really huge and it's commendable if you and your team are able to do that at work. And I would anticipate in order to do that, you got to have a really trusting culture because you're going to, for it to work. And if you've got stuff at home that you're bringing to work and you want to try to get help solving it at work, you've got to really trust the people at work not to judge and to be open to realizing it's stuff and it has to be dealt with.
Yeah, I'd say the two big keys right now is we have 36 people in our book club, which that grew from 26 the first time. And, real stuff gets brought up in that when we're working through the book. And then the other one, we just kicked off all paid for all employees, free mental health, as many sessions as you need, and up to 7 family members as long as they're over the age of 18.
Wow. So that's phenomenal.
You can spread that umbrella. So, if you think of 160 people times 7, that is a pile of people that are getting potentially free help.
That is really amazing. That's great.
Yeah, it was really cool. And we're getting good at getting over the stigma of that as well, because that's always something you got to battle in the second stage of that. But we're trying.
Good for you.
I want to talk about the 5 stages of focused leadership development. So your model, the 5 stages of focused leadership development, has been pivotal in your work. Can you walk us through these stages and explain how leaders can identify where they and their teams currently stand?
Sure, absolutely. So first off, this model obviously evolved over a number of years, but I use it, Brian, in full candor with almost every one of my clients when I'm helping them transition culture, develop leadership skills, deal with succession planning, whatever, because it's a very simple model, but it is effective regardless of industry. And it spans frontline leaders to the C-suite or business owners. So basically, the first stage is when an individual transitions from the doing to the developing system stage. And basically what this is, a stage 1 leader is an individual like you and I, Brandon. When we started out, I'm assuming, given what you do and given what I do, we're pretty good doers. Yep. We're hired and we do the work the company's known for. So we're frontline. We're either on the phone with the customers or we're welding the metal. We're doing the work that the business is known for, and we're good at it. And an individual with stage 1 leadership capabilities or potential is that individual who is like, hey, Brandon, why don't we do it this way? Instead of going this, and this, why don't we go this and that? And it'll save like 4 steps. Yeah. Or they're the individual who's like, hey, where's the documentation for this? I can create it. These are the individuals that very quickly identify where there's a system that can be created, a process that can be improved. They're often the individuals, sometimes, when you're in a crunch, you just want to go, oh, please shut up and stop asking questions, just do it. But they're the person that's identifying areas of potential improvement. That's stage 1 leadership. And by them identifying this need for enhanced system, process, procedure, checklist, efficiency, they're developing systems. Systems add value. Number one, it adds value to the person because now you start going, hey, that guy can identify where we need some efficiency improvements. So they individually become more valuable because they're problem solvers. But by enhancing documentation, systems, processes, procedures, they enhance the value of the company because now they're adding to the knowledge warehouse, to your SOP database. They're adding value. So that's stage 1. Stage 2 is where an individual transitions from this developing mindset to a managing mindset. Now, what happens in stage 2, which is different than any other stage, is this is where an individual actually transitions into some type of role of responsibility. Every other stage is simply a mindset shift. So what stage 2 is, this is where most organizations will promote the best doer because they're the best, right? But you and I and your listeners all probably know doing skills and managing skills are 2 different skill sets. And what happens quite often is when you promote the best doer, what you do is now you've sucked this person out of a production role. So production drops and you now put them in a management role that they haven't been trained on how to do it. So what happens for most individuals who are in this situation is they start working longer hours because they come in early to do management type stuff. Then during the day, they're helping their team do production because the team can't hit the production numbers that they used to hit. And now they're training somebody new, so it's even sucking production numbers down lower. So this person now is becoming a super doer manager that they're trying to do all day long. And then at the end of the shift, their team goes home and this person stays to do some more management stuff to get caught up at the end of the day. And then when he or she's driving home, they're like, and they start hating their job. And stage 2 is where individuals start getting burned out because, number one, they don't know how to let go and develop the team members that they have now are in a position where they're supervising or they're taking over. And number 2, they don't know how to give feedback and hold team members accountable. And it's especially difficult when they've been promoted from within because now they're managing their former peers. And all of a sudden you realize, holy crap, Brandon really is a screw off. He really does waste a lot of time during the day, and now you got to have a conversation with him and you're the supervisor and you guys have been hanging out for years and, you're buddies. It's a really awkward situation to be in. So that's stage 2. And it's a situation of transitioning into really understanding, what is my job now as a supervisor, as a manager? How do I start making that separation to some degree? How do I learn to delegate and let go and develop my team members to do the jobs they're being paid to do? And how do I provide feedback that's helpful to them to do the jobs they're being paid to do, so I do the job that I'm being paid to do? That's stage 2. Then we got to stage.
That's a heavy stage.
It's a heavy stage. It's the hardest one quite often. And it's one, I will tell you also, it doesn't matter if you're a newbie to management. You could be 20 years old, you can be 60 years old, and you still struggle with stage 2.
Yep.
Then we go to stage 3. And stage 3 is where an individual transitions from a managing mindset to a leading mindset. And here's where we're looking at the difference between what is managing and what is leading. And quite often people will cite the saying that, managers do things right, leaders do the right things. Okay, that's great. The way that I define it is managers focus on basically the here and now. Given our resources and our schedule for production, whatever, what do we need to produce today, this week, this month, this quarter, this year to get things done? Whereas a leader thinks, in addition to what we have to produce, that's a given. We're going to figure out how to do it. What's coming next, and how do I tee my team up for it so when it hits, we're not scrambling? So stage 3 is where leaders start thinking strategically, because they have developed a team in stage 2 that is no longer dependent upon them to also be a producer. So they are now leveraging the skills of their team in stage 2. So they have a bit of mental free space and physical free time to think strategically in stage 3. So stage 3, they start looking forward. This is where strategic planning comes into play. Then we get to stage 4. Stage 4 is where a leader transitions from a leading mindset to a mentoring mindset. And basically what happens in stage 4 is now the leader can see where the future of the organization is. Maybe they've got a clear vision. They know what's happening. They can visualize in their mind's eye what needs to occur. So they know, given how the company needs to reorganize, or this team needs to be redesigned, or the workflow needs to be resigned, what does that mean for my talent pool? What skills do we need to develop now? Or what do I need to recruit for now so that I have those skills and we can do these things when we need to? So stage 4 really starts looking at building depth in the organization and really looking for those one deep scenarios to identify, when we've got the one guy that drives a forklift, what happens when he's out? What do we do? And it's not just succession planning for the top leaders. This is succession planning and backfilling for every role, and identifying, where do we have cross-training capabilities? Where can we start really creating agility within our team so that we can run a really lean team if we need to, because we've got team members that can fill in for one another. And when we teach them and we cross-train them, their knowledge set starts to grow exponentially. And they get better at not only the job that they used to do, because now they have a better understanding of what's coming into their cell and what's leaving their cell. And the quality goes up, the understanding goes up, and the camaraderie among team members goes way up. That's stage 4. And then we get to stage 5. And stage 5 can happen a number of different ways. Stage 5 could be basically, this is where it's mentoring to moving on. And stage 5 could be where someone might move on, they might retire or leave the company for whatever reason. Stage 5 could also be where someone moves from one department to another department within the company. Stage 5 could also be something as basic as, I hand off a responsibility to you. However severe or drastic that transition from me to my successor is, in my mind, a stage 5 leader occurs when that transition is seamless. And what that looks like is, someone comes up to me and says, hey, Liz, I'll see you at book club later today. It's like, hey guys, I don't run that any longer. Brandon's been running that. He's been running it for the last 6 months. Like, he has? It's like, yeah, I've been hearing great things about it, but I didn't know that Brandon was running it. Yeah, Brandon's running it. It's great. It's when no one notices you're not doing it any longer. That's a successful stage 5 transition. And the reason I think that's a successful stage 5 transition is that means that if I'm handing something off to you as a successor, I have to have taken you through all those previous 4 steps. I've had to help you see the line of sight of where is this going and really help you develop the skills that you need to take this over and not only do what I do, but do it better than the way it needs to be done going forward. I need to really make sure you understand the trajectory of this team or the company so you can see the line of sight and the strategy for it. I really need to spend time helping you understand the team you have and how to leverage the team that you will take over, but also possibly where you may have pockets that you want to make adjustments. And then also, I'm going to really help you look at those systems, processes, and procedures that I've used in this particular task or in this particular role so that you have some kind of a base of reference, but you are then free to update them and enhance them as they need to be as you take this role or responsibility and move it forward. So those are the 5 stages. And here's the spoiler alert. There's not one that's any better than the other 4. They're all equally powerful, but you move up and down the stages. Here's the soundbite, depending upon where your team needs you to be. Ooh. And what happens quite often when I'm working with organizations and there's just something clunky going on, more often than not, one of the problems they're having is the leader is behaving and operating on the wrong stage. The leader typically needs to back down through some of the stages and reset some of the foundational skills that the team needs to do their jobs better. Because quite often what's happening is a leader is doing things a level or 2 below his or her skill sets and pay scales and position, because the people at that level are not properly skilled or aren't held accountable to do the jobs that they're supposed to be doing. And so it's a matter of, number 1, reading your team and identifying the behaviors that are presenting themselves that are not helpful, and then figuring out how do I back down to the level that they need to be to reset the skills that they need to do the jobs that they're being paid to do.
Man, that was fascinating. It's almost immediately I thought of like a maturity level, like almost a maturity level of an organization as you're going up and down. It's whether you can make it to that next step or not, because everything before that has to be sound.
Exactly. And here's another little kind of kick in the teeth in a way, is it never ends. I mean, just think about it, think about it. How many times have you get to the point, you get the perfect team, you get everything is perfect.
Yes.
And it lasts about a day and a half.
Yes.
And then somebody gets engaged and moves away, or somebody's mother is sick and they have to leave or whatever. And then you bring somebody in, it's like, oh God, here we go again. You got to start all over again.
Yes.
It's this constant ebb and flow. But like with many things and, emotional intelligence and everything, is once you've been through it a couple times and you realize there's a pattern here and you know how to read the pattern and you know which stage you're in, it no longer becomes like, oh my God, I can never get out of this. It's like, okay, wait a minute. I just got to back up to stage 2. I need to do this, this, and this and get them set. And then I can move back out, go to stage 3 and stage 4. But I got to get them stabilized first. Yep. And it becomes more of somewhat of a game in a way of, okay, I know I got to back up a little bit, get them stabilized, get them set, and then we're going to move forward. And it works.
It does really work. Why are those 5 stages so difficult for founders?
Because number 1, for founders, the company is another family member. And quite often it's the family member they have invested the most time and sweat equity and love in than others. I don't want to be crass, but it's true.
100%.
And it's the one that they've been able to mold quite often without, I'm really getting candid with you here, without input from their spouse.
Whoa.
They didn't have to share responsibility or shouldn't have to share decisions of, you know what I'm getting at.
Oh, yeah.
You can make the calls. This is your company. It's your decision. So that's number one. Number two, why it's also difficult is, from my experience with my clients, when you've got a founder who has now got a company that is doing well, let's be honest, this individual is smart. This individual is multifaceted. They not only have the technical expertise to do whatever the company does, they've got business savvy, even though they may not have been academically trained in business. They understand finances, even though they may not have been academically trained in finance. They have a network. They understand the industry like nobody's business. I've got a manufacturing client that he can just walk out the production floor, and by listening to how loud the equipment is, he can tell the throughput and he can gauge the numbers that are going to hit for the day just by listening to the sound of the equipment.
Oh my gosh. That's amazing.
Yeah. So I say all that because a challenge for a founder to let go is invariably that founder is looking for a mini me. And it's very difficult for a founder, and particularly when you got family members that start coming in, for them to get comfortable and trusting of non-family members. I'm having a conversation right now with one of my clients, and there's family dynamics there, and one of the family members is their, I'll just say CFO, but really basically senior accountant. And this owner wants another family member to come over and take over the accounting, and this other family member doesn't have accounting training. And I'm telling my client, hiring somebody for accounting is one of the easiest positions to fill with a non-family member, because they, for CPA, they've got to be licensed. You got to be licensed, okay? Yeah. And you got to have so that's one of the easier positions to fill. But it's also helping founders understand the value of clarifying roles and responsibilities, because that's something else that I see with founders is quite often their roles and responsibilities are all jumbled together like a big pile of spaghetti.
Because they wore so many hats, so why wouldn't everybody else?
Exactly. And they're the ones that are kind of like a moth out in the production floor or whatever. They're kind of going all over the place. And it's difficult for them to go, no, you got to kind of stay in your lane, because it's actually less confusing for everybody else. Yes. So it takes a while to help them understand the beauty in the structure, and it's not locking you into something, it's giving you a framework to work around. Because before that framework, all your employees see is this, and they don't understand a framework. The other important part of it is, for my clients that are founder-led, if you're looking for your company to be your retirement plan, then we need to create a business that can function without you, or is attractive for purchase without you. And so that is going to require that we've got to offload what you have up here and create organization, so that we can start putting people in to do these many different things that can be attractive to a buyer, or at least provide the structure that is attractive to a buyer.
That's a really good answer. That last one surprises me. It surprises me that people don't understand that it has to exist without them, and for that to be viable for someone else to buy.
Mm-hmm.
I think it catches a lot of people off guard.
It does. And I'm going to tell you, as soon as I forgot about this until you just said that. So a couple years ago, I gave a speech at a conference. It was a franchise conference for hardware stores. And one of the guys came up to me afterwards, and he's kind of pulling up his pants. He was all proud of himself. And he's like, I'm a stage 5 leader, Liz. I've been a stage 5 leader for years. And I was like, really? I said, that's phenomenal. That's great. I'm happy to hear that. And he goes, yeah, but I travel. I do all kinds of traveling. I can be gone for about 6 weeks, but then I need to come back, and I need to fix things up after about 6 weeks being away. And I said, well, it's really interesting you say that, because if you can't be gone longer than 6 weeks and you got to come back and fix things, that's really not stage 5 leadership. That means you've got a team that can hold things together for 5 or 6 weeks, and they're waiting for you to come back to get the next set of instructions to go forward. So you're really not transitioning. You're just putting them on pause while you go away.
That has to be a disaster for the team.
Yeah. Yeah. Because you can't do anything for 6 weeks, really, but he thinks he's doing a great job. But I just share that because it's one of these things where, like with my clients at family businesses, one of the first tests that we do, and the first time I ever did this with a husband and wife team, and their 2 sons were stepping up and taking ownership of the business, wanted to take ownership of the business. And I said, here's the first test. Mom and Dad, you're going to go on vacation for 2 weeks. The first week is a cruise. The second week is, I don't know, they were driving someplace. But that first week, you're only allowed to call home once that week. And they were like, because 30 years they'd never done that. But we worked up to them being able to do that. And when they came back from their vacation, it was like, oh my God. The business survived. My phone didn't blow up while I was away. Granted it was only 2 weeks, but man, things can survive without me for 2 weeks. And it was like, and it's a challenge for founders when you live and breathe your business and it's an 18-hour day, at least 6 days a week, if not 7 sometimes. When you do that for decade after decade, it's hard to break that habit. Yeah. But it's also hard to sell that business because you are the business. Even though you may have capital, even though you may have equipment, if you are that tied to the business, it's hard to sell because you're so integral to everything that happens.
Just around that kind of grind mentality, I heard a quote just this weekend from a Buddhist monk, and it said, "A healthy body has 100 problems. A sick body has 1." I was like, dang.
Mm-hmm. Priorities. Yeah.
Man, that's so true. And I was just thinking, like, you could go from all this stuff that's on your calendar and you wake up and feel like trash. And guess what? None of it matters in that instant. I was like, that is so powerful. Holy smokes.
Yep. Absolutely.
Succession planning. So it's often discussed but rarely executed effectively. What are the common pitfalls organizations face in succession planning, and how can they overcome them to ensure leadership continuity?
Stop overcomplicating it. Next question.
Oh, to just have one on the org chart behind. Why is this so difficult?
Yeah. And honestly, Brandon, when I do succession planning with my clients, it's an org chart.
Yep.
We pull an org chart, and every position in the company is on the org chart. Every position is on the org chart. And here's a quick and dirty tutorial on how I do succession planning. So you got your org chart, every position, okay? You're the top dog at your company there. So your name goes up at the top, but below your name in that same box is number 1, 2, and 3. Yep. You do the same thing with every position in the company. And what happens then is you go back after the 1, 2, and 3 and identify who are the 1, 2, or 3 people individually or in combination that slide in and fill that role for you while you're away, or who should be able to slide in and fill that role while you are away, and put their names in there. If there's nobody, put question marks. And then here's the fun part. Then you go through and you color code everybody. Red, yellow, and green. Okay? Green is this person in the position can do it, Liz Weber rule, independently and competently. They get a green. Okay? That is if they're in the position or if they are a designated backup. Okay. They get green if they can do it independently and competently. They're color-coded yellow if they're new and they're learning, or they can do the job kind of, sort of, but they need help. Sure. They need coaching, whatever it might be. They're color-coded pink or red if it's vacant or there's a question mark there, or if the person just is not getting it. And you've tried a number of things, but they're not getting it. So what happens then is you look at this org chart, and ideally you want to see monochromatic green. But typically what you see is a really pretty chart that's got lots of colors and usually a lot more yellow and pink than one would usually hope for. But what it does very, very quickly also is you might have this pocket, this team that's all green. And what it does for you as a CEO is like, what's going on with that team? What's happening here? And usually you find out there's a little culture, a little hub there where you've got a strong manager, a strong supervisor. That individual has built a really strong team. They support one another. They're cross-trained. They're independent. They don't cause any problems. And it's a cultural mindset. You've got another little team over here, and it's mostly pink and yellow. And it's driven quite often by whoever is in the lead position or the lead role there, and what has happened with that team where they haven't had the proper support or oversight that they've needed in the past, several years, whatever it might be. But it also starts to identify where you're lacking depth. Is you may have somebody who, in his or her role is a green, but when you look who their backups are, the backups are all yellow and pink. Well, to me, that makes me nervous because if you're green and all your backups are pink, if something happens to you, we're still in a bad situation. Now right. I've just got 3 people that really don't know what they're doing versus, no one. So it starts to identify priorities of where do you need to focus your attention to kind of insert yourself and identify what is causing so many yellows and pinks over here. And how do I help get support for this team? Or how do I start thinking about transitioning some team members? Or how do I start building depth here quickly and target in targeted ways to turn pinks to yellows and yellows to green? And so it really starts laying out some development planning.
When you say targeted, I'm assuming, because my mind went to like, this really has to help you clarify your reviews. So your annual reviews with your yellows and your pinks, it could really say, okay, this is what you want. We think you could be the right person. You're a good fit maybe culturally, but these are the skill sets you're still lacking that put you in that yellow and pink, and we want to get you to that place.
Exactly. But it doesn't even need to be when you have your annual or semi-annual review.
Sure.
I always find it's kind of it honestly, it takes like 5 minutes to do unless you have this massively enormous,
that's true.
team. And my rule is go with your gut instinct. Why are you coding that person yellow? And again, the targeted support doesn't need to be something complex where we're talking about the competencies of a person, blah, 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 blah. No, it just means I'm coding Liz yellow because when she does a budget, they're typically messed up.
Gotcha.
So Liz needs help in budgeting. That's it. Okay. Why are you coding this person pink? Because when he gets frustrated, he starts swearing like a sailor. Okay. That's a different intervention that's needed. And it can be just these minor, one-off interactions or interventions that are needed to give you insight as to why are you coding someone a pink or a yellow or even a green. I mean, just because someone's a green doesn't mean that they don't have any area to improve.
Right. How transparent are you with that document?
You're transparent with your immediate direct report one-on-one.
Okay.
Don't show it as a group. And the typical rule of thumb is that document is created after you do a strategic plan update.
Okay.
Because it also, well, you can do it right now to get a current kind of a baseline pulse check. But then what I encourage you to do is after you do your strategic plan update, you do it again, because then you're going to get a line of sight of where you need to go. And that's going to help you when you do your performance planning for your performance reviews of saying, here's the training and the certifications I'm recommending over the next 6 months for you because of where our department's going, because of where the company's going. And then you got that line of sight for it.
Yeah, that's really good. That's made easy, everyone.
Yeah.
There you go. Free guide.
There you go. Yeah. Keep it simple. Keep it
Yeah.
simple. I mean, somebody reached out to me last year and wanted me to help them with succession planning. And I kind of talked through, the potential approach. And they're like, well, no, we really want the document, the book to be able to present to our board. And I was like, I can't help you with that. Number one, no way. If I was a board director, I wouldn't want to read it. And to me, it sounds like you're just creating a checklist item. I mean, how completely useless is that? So,
yep. Yeah. So speaking of strategic, let's talk about culture. So you've emphasized the leadership that drives culture. How can leaders intentionally shape organizational culture to align with strategic goals? And what are the signs of misaligned culture?
ask a bigger question than that one, okay? So a couple. I'm gonna kind of answer that in reverse. So misaligned culture. One of the things that I do when I start working with a client, because of what I do, is I kind of stalk them a little bit on the internet and look at their website and ask for some documents and things. But I'll look at their vision, mission, and values. And if a company's vision is something like, we're going to be the world's best widget maker, okay, I don't care what your vision is, but then I want to look at how you operate as a business and how you treat your employees and how you function and how you deliver your different strategies, because they all need to align to enable you to be the world's best widget maker. And if they're not targeted to be the world's best widget maker, then you've got misalignment. Then I also want to look at your values, because in order to be the world's best widget maker, I'm assuming you're going to need some of the world's best team members with the best insights and skills and working conditions and mindsets. So I'm going to look at that to see if that is supporting the vision. And I'm also going to look at your mission to see if the mission of becoming the world's best widget maker is creating a mindset that every day your employees are going, yeah, I get to go to work and make widgets today. And they feel good about it because they know these widgets are contributing to XYZ project or XYZ products or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
The vision, mission, vision, mission, values, I call the cultural framework. Those three things need to align because they set the framework that all of your strategic goals are going to start moving out and moving forward. And if that framework isn't set up, your goals can run awry, and then you start working against one another and you start working off target or off of your vision.
Yeah, I think that's another thing I took out of your presentation was I was kind of lost on that whole framework, I'll say. Like I haven't heard at that time, I haven't heard it yet that it like clicked with me, because I was like, okay, like I don't need these. Why does everybody else need these? But it's not really about me. Like I had to wrap my head around like I don't, that's one of my weaknesses, I think, is getting things out of my head and on paper that they can be motivational and like guiding.
Mm-hmm.
So I just did a just cause exercise, the Simon Sinek's like just cause exercise. So all I did was create a Google sheet or a Google form that had a bunch of really personal questions about why they come to work, blah, 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 blah. So I got like 24, 25 people, leadership and things like that. And then they each picked a person to fill that out. And then I pulled all that together. I threw it into ChatGPT and I said, okay, this is what I'm trying to do with all this information. I have all these great answers. And it gave me this beautiful, like 2-page document of like, these are the themes. And it was like so hard. And then we took all that and I said, using all this information and following Simon Sinek's equation of what makes a just cause, like, let's start ripping some examples. Then we came up with like 10. And then I put those in a Google form and then everybody voted. And we finally came up with one. And it was beautiful. And it was so
cool.
About people and culture. And it was like, oh my God, I can't believe this one. So what I didn't realize about that whole process is it's not out of my head. It's part of it is just the process of doing it as a group that like lights the fire, that like really pushes people into kind of giving a shit. You know what I mean? And I don't think I wrapped my head around that until recently when it was like, the process and the people talking about it and being like, we're a part of something that's a way bigger. That's like the big thing about it. So I don't know. That's
Yeah.
a long rant, but
No, Brandon, but it's true. And I think, you know, in the times we're in now, more than ever, this is what I'm talking with my clients about. Culture is everything right now, because when you can create that type of feeling where employees have fun coming to work, they get to know their colleagues. Some they like a lot, some they don't, but they still can hang out and have a good time. They're in a situation where they're comfortable enough to share personal ideas with one another. It becomes a safe haven, in addition to a place where they can do things that are creative and meaningful and productive, and they're gaining skills and they're making money. You know, again, it's a win-win-win-win-win. And it's one of these things where, you know, I'm so happy when I've got clients that understand this whole vision, mission, values thing. It's not touchy-feely crap, because Liz doesn't do touchy-feely. I just don't, you know. And it's the reason we do this is because this is a foundation for everything. Because to your point, this isn't about you. It's about creating something that others can gleam onto and go, I want to be a part of that.
correct.
And then when you as the leader can articulate and help articulate what that is and what the future direction of that is, then the team goes, I want to be on that train. I want to be a part of that. And that's when things really take off. I don't care if you're welding steel or if you're stuffing envelopes or if you're doing whatever. Sometimes then the actual work becomes, you know, it's work and it's fun, but it becomes more of, I'm a part of something that is doing something cool.
I think it was the articulation of how awesome we are that was so hard for me to wrap my head around. You know what I mean? But like, I needed the group to help through that. And yeah, you're dead right. It's just getting that in a sentence is so hard for me to wrap my head around until we went through that process. And it was like, oh, okay, like this is how this works.
Yeah, but I mean, just think about how impactful it is for your team, because you didn't come up with it. It was a compilation of what they shared. Yeah, well, but again, it's you know, for them, they even have a little part of the final compilation. You know, and some of them might remember, oh, I think I said that word, or I think I said part of that, and you know, they can see themselves in the final result, which is really, really neat.
Yeah, I was really happy with the result. I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I told everybody, I was like, I've never done one of these before, so we're going to go ahead and send it and see what happens. But it turned out great. So, all right. Role of HR and strategic leadership. In your presentation, are you influential HR or are you an afterthought? You challenge HR professionals to elevate their strategic impact. What steps can HR leaders take to become indispensable strategic partners in their organization? So before you go, I remember being at that presentation and it was full of HR representatives. And what I found most fascinating was a lot of similar thoughts on, well, I really can't impact the organization from my seat. That's what I felt from the audience. And I didn't even know that existed. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is real.
Yeah. So I don't know if you remember, but one of the things I typically tell HR groups when I'm keynoting for them, speaking to them, is I need them to be me inside the organization, because typically there is nothing I'm telling the leadership team that HR has not tried to already tell the leadership team.
1,000%.
But what I share with the HR pros is through research and surveys that I've done and the work that I've done through the years. Invariably, when I'm working with the leadership team or an ownership team, whether it's strategic planning or if it's leadership training or group coaching, whatever, with the exception of 2 times in my 30-something years of being in business, Brandon, with the exception of 2 times, the functional role that is the least outspoken, that gets talked over the most, that contributes the least, is HR. And when they do speak, quite often they don't command the room and they don't own their ideas. And so when I speak with HR pros, I typically go through, some things that they are doing for the best of intentions that are hurting themselves in front of the leadership team. And also I share with them ways of simply communicating information differently so it carries more influence and impact with the management team. So it's learning how to communicate not like HR, but like one of the business functional leaders in the company.
Is that because of personality profiles that usually go into that role, you think?
It can be.
Okay.
But if they want to be heard, if they want to have influence with the leadership team, if they want to get into senior leadership, they need to speak the language of the company. And that means they have to understand what are the metrics that are driving the business. What is the business impact of this policy on HR, on personnel actions? What is the impact on culture of this? And if it's going to have a negative impact on culture, what are the potential ramifications of negative employee actions as a result of that? And how's that going to impact the bottom line for legal costs? How's that going to impact the PR that's going to go out and the people that are going to start posting on Glassdoor and blah, 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 and be able to raise that. It's also their ability to sit across the table from you in a room with the CFO, the CMO, the chief production officer, everybody else, and say, Brandon, no, I disagree, and let me explain why. And walk you through why I disagree with the statement that you just said, or I'm gonna disagree with the CFO, and let me explain why I disagree with that. And comfortably have that conversation instead of going,
yep.
And really understanding that if you want to be heard and respected for your opinions, right, wrong, or otherwise, you have to be able to convey them in a way that people believe you believe them yourself. And you're willing to put a little emotion behind the strength of your commitment to the idea or the research that you've done or the belief that the decision they're going to make is not correct. But should they make it, you'll support it. But you want them to have all the information up front before they make the decision.
Dang. Yeah, I felt that in that room. That's powerful. I mean, that is like, you're keeping the flag for vision, mission, values, right? Like, and you have to say like, okay, this doesn't align with everything we agreed upon. So like, let's get back on the road, y'all.
Exactly. Dang. Yeah, exactly. But, but it's one of these things where, again, it's, the vision or the values that you created, they're not in alignment. And let me explain why this is going to be a problem for the bottom line. When you say that, people are going to go, explain it then. Well, then you can start laying out, we're going to have increased employee actions, which is going to be legal costs. We're going to have Glassdoor issues, which is a PR problem. I'm going to have a cycle of people leaving the floor, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
And that's different than going, do you know how many complaints I'm going to start getting if we impose this? And do you know what this is going to do for the company picnic? And do you know how there's a difference between sharing concerns that are going to hit the bottom line of the company versus sharing concerns that are going to make your life more difficult.
Yeah, that's really good. Definitely. Well, it's also knowing your audience, right? So speaking on that level because of the audience you're in,
right?
You know what keeps them up at night. So use it.
Well, you know what keeps them up at night, but also when you think about it, the other thing is, quite often when I'm talking to HR pros is like, so what are you reporting up to the management team? What are you sharing with them? If you're sharing with them that, well, we put 1,300 people through open enrollment, yippee, that's great. But your production manager just ran 24 hours straight to get the shipment out on time because the machines were down for 3 days this last week and they busted their tails. They're more concerned about that than you doing something that's a regular process.
Yeah, that's good.
So it's understanding we got 1,300 people through open enrollment, which was great. But here's what we did that I think really matters to the team. Because we changed providers, we also saved 32% on our annual premiums, but we've expanded the accessibility to mental health services to not only to immediate members and their immediate family, but extension of potential 7 family members.
Yep.
Boom.
That's it.
There you go.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, that's a very strategic approach. I love that. Yeah, I think we do that kind of well. Luckily, Molly's been around for so long and been involved in so much decision making that it's so natural for us. So I think I walked into a very good situation there. She has a great voice. And I told her, I said, like, you're my other culture monster. So when you don't feel like something's right, you go yelling. So yeah, that's really good.
Good for you.
Awesome.
Good for you.
So you and your husband spent over 20 years rehabilitating and caring for retired horses. What parallels have you drawn between leading a team and working with horses, particularly in terms of trust and communication?
With horses, because they can be big and they can hurt you if you don't pay attention to them, you need to be very clear in what you ask of them to do. And here's the kicker, and here's the alignment with leadership. You have to have thought this through before you make the ask. So something as basic as one of the horses I had was rather aggressive with food, meaning when you would open the stall door to put the food bucket in, she would come charging towards a door. 1,600-pound horse could easily knock you out of the way to get to the food. And so I had to learn that I needed to, before I even open the door, tell her, back up, back up, back up, open the door, stay, put the food down, stay. And then I'd be extra mean. I'd say, do you want the food? And she would nod her head and I'd say, you can have the food. And then she'd be able to walk forward. But so something as basic as that of this horse could kill me if I'm not clear in what I'm asking them to do. And I share that with leaders, because if you say, my team just doesn't produce, my employees just don't care. Well, specifically, what are you asking them to produce, or how are you expecting them to behave to show you that they care? You have to get clear yourself in what you are looking for before you make the ask. And then when you make the ask has to be clear. You can't be so nebulous that they have to interpret.
There's a lot of intentionality in there.
There's a lot of intentionality in there. You always have to be thinking.
I don't think I've realized that. Like, I thought I was a good communicator until I read Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. And it really made me realize, like, a little bit of research goes a long way before you go into a conversation. And then I applied that even in, like, when we're about to have department meetings, like, what's going on? What are people struggling? What projects are out there? How long has the same stuff been out there, right? Have we looked at the same project for the last 6 months and, the team's just like, can we please not see this again? Like, all that stuff comes into it, and just being genuinely a little empathetic to that and throwing those messages in there of, I know what's going on out there. I get it. It's a struggle right now, but we're coming towards the end of it. That goes so far. We're just having a little appreciation of the actual environment.
Yeah. Yeah, that the world that they actually operate in. Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm about to do a crazy exercise. You're probably gonna laugh at this, but I went and talked to all my ops team, because I've realized that my mind is very good at fixing process. Like, that's where I love to live, but I've never worked in the shop. Like, I'm really dumb when it comes to mechanical aptitude of anything. So I'm going to spend a week in each of the shop departments. And really, I'm going to record myself having conversations with myself around, like, why did it take me so long to find this material? Why is this? Can I send a picture to the supervisor instead of having them walk over every single time I need them? Like, that kind of thing. And then I'm going to take that transcript and try to almost like lean the manufacturing floor in things that I think are really stupid, because I don't have rose-colored glasses. It'll just be like, well, why have we always done it this way? Like, walking around like a complete idiot. So I'm going to do that in each of the departments, and I'm going to do it in the hottest part of the year, because it's the worst time to be out there, because I want to experience that as well. I want to experience it we have PAPR systems, which, like, pretty much like self-guided air masks that keep fresh air. So when you're welding really bad stuff or it's hot or you're grinding or whatever, and then just kind of go through and try to be as useful as I can, because I'm not going to be very useful. And I was very clear with my team. They just started laughing at me. They're like, oh, Lord, what is this going to entail? And a little bit of a marketing play, right? Like, I think that goes a long way that, I don't know how to do a lot of that, but I'm at least going to give it the old college try and see what happens. But the main process for me is like, what all can I fix just from annoyances, right? That I have to deal with for a week. It's like, oh, this is so stupid. Or like, okay, complaining about not having enough forklifts is real. We do not have enough forklifts out here, things like that. So I don't know how it's going to go, but it's like somebody's joked with me at work. They're like, it's the opposite of undercover boss, because like you're going to be out there. It's like, yeah, it's going to be terrible.
That's what I was just saying. It's like undercover boss, but in a way it's not. Yeah. So,
yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure what all is going to come out, but I've realized that there's certain things that I've asked or that I'm trying to fix that I just can't wrap my head around the entire process because I've never been in it. So I'm going to try to solve that this summer. We'll see how it goes. I'll keep you posted.
Good. Sure. I want to hear the results.
I'm sure there'll be pictures online with me.
I want to see the videos, but more than that, I want to see your team members going, God, no, God, here he comes.
That's exactly. I told them, I said, I feel like I'm a pretty quick learner and I can broom and sweep up anything with the best of them. But like, it'll be working with my dad for like a straight week, because I'm just like, I'm the guy that hands him stuff. Like, they're not going to trust me with anything. It's going to be awesome. All right. Last question here. This one's around motorcycling. So riding motorcycles requires focus, balance, and awareness qualities also essential in leadership. Have your experiences on the road informed your perspective on leadership and decision making? So you're into horses and motorcycles?
I don't know. I never thought about that before. I don't think so. I'm going to say no. Because other than looking ahead and making sure it's safe for intersections and stuff like that, not for me, because I am a selfish motorcycle rider in that my husband bought me a Harley V-Rod years ago, and I couldn't ride it for medical reasons. I had to have hips replaced at the time, and we still have it. But I don't drive myself because we also have a Honda Goldwing. And I can sit on the back, like in this Barca Lounger, and not pay attention and listen to the music and watch the world go by. And I don't have to think. And so for me, it's a complete, I go to my nothing box and I just enjoy. My poor husband pays attention and has to do all the leadership stuff. I don't. I just go for the ride and enjoy the ride.
Well, it's your unplug.
It's my unplugged moment. Yeah. It's my space out there. Yeah.
So this one's not on my list, but I want to ask you about this because it's been bothering me and I feel like you're the perfect person to ask. What are your feelings on the sudden, maybe it's not sudden, maybe I'm just ignorant to the whole thing, but like, I feel like the word servant leadership is being like overly consumed right now. I don't know where it came from. To me, that's kind of what leadership always equated to, but I don't know why we had to throw this word servant in front of it. And it seems to be all the buzz. And I don't know. I can't wrap my head around why it's so important to everyone and why it's so buzzy.
It's been around for decades, and I don't know. Maybe in your world it's buzzy. It's out there right now. I only assume the initial substance of servant leader, to your point, was I'm here as a leader to, I'll just say, clear roadblocks for you, to service you, to enable you to do your job well.
Sure.
I anticipate there is a lot of buzz around it right now because there is some perspective that some models of leadership right now are not servant leaders. And therefore there's this difference of opinion potentially. But servant leader, to be a servant leader, it kind of goes to what you and I have been talking about. And a good leader is an individual that reads the team and identifies, what does the team need? What do I need to do, my terminology, to clear roadblocks for them? so they can do the work that needs to be done and that we're here all to do together.
Yeah.
And it's not about me, it's about the team, and it's about what we're trying to produce together.
And sometimes that's nothing.
Sometimes that's nothing. Sometimes that's just putting your helmet on and sitting on the back of a Honda Goldwing and just going for it.
No, 100%. I feel like we always feel sometimes we have to do, like, it's, okay, perfect example of this. When Molly comes to tell me a story from HR, she now knows she will tell me this is just information only, or I need you to do something with this, because my initial action is fix her, and I want to fix everything. And now we have that understanding where she goes, information only. And I say, okay, change my mindset.
Yep. Well, but that's helpful for you though too. Is
100%.
You don't need to start gearing up, and you don't need to ask questions about how it's going to be handled. You don't need any other input. It's handled. Just FYI, so you're not blindsided.
That's exactly it. And that is so healthy. And actually a lot of our team, even my direct team members, it's like, hey, this is just a bitch session. I'm just coming to vent. Nothing, no more. I don't need anything. And it's just, that is so helpful when you're like, okay, triggers down. I'm like blazing all guns and they just lower, but yeah.
Yep. But what's helpful there though, Brandon, too, and I have been spending a lot of time the last several months with a lot of my coaching clients, just sharing insights into how to get better communicating up. Molly's the example here. This is FYI only, just so you're not blindsided, or I need you to take action, or on this, let me tell you the story. And queuing you up for what she needs of you, versus coming and laundry listing and blah, 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 blah. So you start going numb about 30 seconds into her tirade, and then you're lost. Like, what am I supposed to do with all of this?
Yes.
And it's one of those things where, kind of go back to the conversation we had earlier with when I speak to HR pros, it's being clear in what do they need to hear, what do you want them to do with the information that you're sharing with them, either FYI only, or I need you to take action on this, so that you become an asset and an aid for them, versus, oh crap, here comes Liz.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's so true. And I'm wondering how much of that is a laundry list because you feel like you only have a certain amount of moments, right? Like, so if you're not in the room, you're setting your team up that it's like, okay, I'm almost not accessible all the time. You're not in the room, so you're trying to push that importance, and it's just not the right approach, and that kind of sucks too.
Exactly. Well, and that's exactly about 2-3 weeks ago, I had a conversation with a director about that, because she's like, but we've done so much, and I want to make sure that everybody gets credit. My team gets credit for this, but it's like, but they don't care. Nobody, and I'm not saying it because they don't care, but they don't care because their teams have all been busy too. You need to share with them what matters to them, what's going to impact them, what you need them to be aware of, or what you need them to give a heads up on, or what you need them to help you with. That's all they care about, because their team's been really busy too.
Yeah, I struggle with that whole small wins thing too, because how do you differentiate the ones that should and shouldn't be special? It's I don't know. It's all confusing sometimes.
but it goes back to, again, this is where, I don't know if it's just because everything is a nail, I use a hammer, whatever, but it goes back to the strategic plan. What are you trying to accomplish? What are your goals for this quarter? What are your production requirements for this quarter? And what are you reporting on that's helping show that you're advancing those goals?
Yeah, I guess that is the filter.
That's the filter.
Oh, man, now I get it. I got it. It all just became clear. Oh, that's really good. Okay, that makes total sense. That is the filter of the wins versus the not. And which ones you celebrate, because which ones feed towards that vision, mission, values, the framework.
Yeah. You're looking for the outcomes. You're looking for the impact, not the actions that got you there, the impact.
Yours isn't always be closing. Yours is always be coaching. That was amazing. That was really helpful. Holy crap. That just eurekaed me. I love that. Oh my gosh. Cool. Well, Liz, where can everybody find you? I'm sorry I wanted to cover some of this earlier, but like, where are you? If people are like, oh my gosh, who's this Liz person? I want to work with her. Where do they go?
Easiest place to find me, my website. My company name is Weber Business Services, LLC. So the website is Whiskey Bravo Sierra Lima Lima Charlie.com, WBSLLC.com. Or I'm most active on LinkedIn. In my handle on LinkedIn is Liz Weber CMC. Weber has one B. So Liz Weber CMC on LinkedIn.
Beautiful. Yeah, you are quite active on there. I don't know why all coaches aren't super active on LinkedIn. It is like where all your customers are.
I know. It's the business hangout place.
How much? Yeah. One last question, and this is more personal. One, because I'm very interested in doing it myself. How do you enjoy the keynote speaking part?
That's a really good question. I'm enjoying it more now than I ever have. It Why? Used to be the least favorite part of my business, the least favorite revenue stream, because it's the one that I was the least confident in, and the one that, you've got 30 minutes, 40 minutes, 60 minutes, maybe 90 minutes to get the message across, where I am most comfortable rolling up my sleeves, getting in the conference room with you, the training room or the boardroom, and we're working for half a day, or weeks or whatever, and making things happen. But also, I don't, contrary to what I said before, when I need to be in front, I don't need the applause, and I don't need the, oh my God, you're so amazing, comments. But what I enjoy now more about keynote speaking is I finally got my head around that I'm the kind of keynote speaker, and I think I probably did it when you saw me present. I walk into the group and I have conversations with them. Yes, I'll present information, but I'll have conversations, and invariably I kind of go into default coaching mode when somebody asks a question, which is very different than standing on a stage 30 feet away from an audience and talking at them for, an hour, and then people standing on their chairs going, oh my God, that was inspirational. That's not me. Mine is more, I hadn't thought about that before. That was really good. I can actually do something with that. Yeah. That's what I like. Yeah, and I think I got, well, in this podcast, same thing. I got some clarity moments that were brilliantly simplistic in their application, which why it clicked so much for me, where it's not all philosophy. It's just like, do this, try it. It works. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. So that was very helpful. I'm with you. I'm struggling with the construct of it and fitting that mold in my head of what that looks like. And I would just get rid of the mold. Okay. Get rid of the mold. And I'm just, I'm being very serious, because it took me until like 3 years ago to get rid of the mold. So I thought I had to fit some mold. I was like, I'm not really a great keynote speaker, but I can tell you, and I'm not just, braggadocious, but the speeches I've given last year and so far this year, the clients are like, oh my God, that was awesome. Fantastic. And it wasn't on a big flashy stage. It's a small venue. It's a summit. It's a CEO retreat. It's a this or it's a that. But when you've got people sitting there going, yeah, we can do that. That was good. That was really helpful. That was worth the entire weekend right there. I mean, when I hear that, that means everything. Yeah. Oh yeah. That's clients for life right there. Yeah. Because you're literally making their lives easier. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's brilliant. Well, thank you so much for coming on and spending an hour and 18 minutes. I told you only an hour. Well, when it's fun, it's fun. I'm happy to be here. We had some laughs, and it was a good time. Yes, thank you for that. And thanks for turning around on short notice. And do you have anything else for the group? I tell you what, I'm going to hold off only because we're going through a complete website upgrade right now. And if I send anybody to the site, just my luck, they're going to get there when we're doing flip over, and they're going to get 404 codes, and they're going to go, this woman doesn't have a decent website. So just connect with me on LinkedIn, and we'll go from there.
Okay, that's perfect. Well, thank you everybody for showing up, and we'll see you on the next one.